Hello and welcome back to Rage Gaming and some more Arc Raiders news talk. There's been a lot going on this week. First up, less of like news and more of like a serious warning. With the introduction of the event Bird City, people are accessing different rarities of ducks. These new ducks are worth different amounts, but people are using some sort of dupe to, well, duplicate the item, with the obvious purpose of making infinite money, or massive amounts of money at the very least. Obviously this is insane, shouldn't be in the game. And much like any duplication glitch, if it can be done on one item, it can be done on others. So that's why we're seeing ridiculous examples, screenshots and such of this, wall-to-wall blueprints. Now obviously this is really stupid stuff, and you're playing with fire if you're engaging with it. But what concerns me about it is the fact that it's happening. Imagine you're just playing, you kill someone, they had all these blueprints. Or this Reddit post from a couple days ago where this guy claims to have killed someone and then he had this wall-to-wall amount of the purple ducks. Someone's using dupes in your raid, you kill them, now you've got all their loot, which is all of their dupe loot. It leaves me concerned for the people that aren't actually exploiting and cheating, getting caught out by this. So I just want to give you a warning about that. It's something to think about. And a reminder that they're working on a cheater system that they just told us about, where they're going to do scaling bans from 30 days, 60 and 90 are permanent, which this is the kind of stuff I speculated that system is going to be created for. Not actual cheating like wall hacking or aim hacking, which should always be an instant permaban. But for people engaging with exploits found in the game like this, other examples of the whole out of bounds and shooting players that are in the map, glitching into locked rooms, and yes, duping. What's possible in the game isn't always fair and intended. Exploit is the term I'd give it. So I strongly recommend you don't do this, especially when that system update comes out. And I hope they don't mess it up and, you know, punish people who just looted someone that was duping. Now, speaking of unintended stuff, we had that update that fixed the patch itself. As they stated, some weapons were affected by a bug that reduced their fire rate, which was not an intentional change. And they say, we always aim to include all changes in our patch notes, and we appreciate you flagging this quickly. So if you're worried about the kettle, the venator, the burletta having significantly lower fire rate, well, obviously that's been fixed now, if you weren't yet aware. But it's also good to know that they're going to try to include all changes in the patch notes in the future. Which, you know, is good to know. There are so many games that I've covered on this channel where changes happen and they simply don't tell you. They tell you some of the things that have happened, or they use really vague terms. It drives me mad. So it sounds like Arc Raiders are actually going to tell us as much as they can. They're not intentionally withholding anything. What does suck though is the other change that was apparently intentional. Yeah, the whole high speed looting thing. Apparently, according to the devs, they have indeed rebalanced the speed at which the first item appears when looting. Looting speed before 1.13 was actually unintended. So you are getting the looter's instinct passive benefits. It just doesn't feel like it because it's so much slower than before the patch. And this is actually intended. What do you guys think? Is the slower looting fine or irritating every time? I think we're gonna get used to it. I already feel like I have. But the concept of just taking longer to loot isn't something I'm too thrilled by. It definitely felt better before this change. I imagine if enough people were really upset by it, they would make a change, but I don't think people are. But now let's get into that concerning concept of DDoSing. Coordinated DDoS attacks have been referenced by the devs. In fact, it was posted on their Discord. But it's not just Arc Raiders, it's also their other game, the Finals. Since they announced that, there's been 2 more examples when literally today as I make this video where more of that lag is occurring. And yeah, this kind of stuff is really frustrating. It's still not been announced like what's actually happening here, only that they're aware of a coordinated attack and obviously it's ongoing. They're at least acknowledging it and letting us know that something's going on and they're trying to find a solution. But since it's happening today still as I make this video and it's been a few days since it started, whoever or whatever it is doesn't look like it's been completely resolved. So if you're experiencing more lag than usual, that's why. In more positive news, there's one more thing that we can talk about. In regards to legendary weapons, you know, the special weapons, the equalizer is not a good PvP weapon because it takes quite the time to wind up as you encounter someone. And then also the ticking damage itself, you're going to get out traded by a lot of weapons, including something like a kettle or a sticher, so that's a concern. I do enjoy using it. The range of the weapon is surprisingly good. And obviously, if you can mitigate the wind up time, then you can catch someone out with it, which is cool. Meanwhile, you have something like the Jupiter. I find that playing this at a close to medium range is good, because you're able to smash someone for a lot of damage, half the health bar. If you shoot at them from the side or the back, it's a fantastic catch someone out sort of opening attack. The problem with the weapon is you have to empty the chamber and refill the chamber, which is a process. In the middle of a fight, that's some long time downtime, especially if you miss a shot. If you're going to use it to snipe, you're going to hit someone for great damage and that feels great, but then they're just going to go behind cover and heal up. Lastly, you have the Aphelion, which is the best of all of them. You get multiple bursts per shot, and if you land all hits on 3 shots, so 6 hits total, you're going to bring people down. If they're hurt already, it can be done in 2 shots. It can also be used at close range if you do a quick swing, fire, go back into cover, then go back out again. Or fire, then roll, then fire, much like a toro or something. I find this weapon shines the most when you give it as much accuracy as possible, crouch and fire at a medium range. I actually find it more reliable in terms of burst and pressure than, say, the Jupiter. But you know, none of these examples are like, yes, this is really good in PvP. So what would a legendary weapon look like for a PvP focus in terms of its original design? Well, they say that legendary guns aimed for PvP purpose is completely possible. But anything that's going to be like a one-shot kill is not going to happen, because they think that gameplay is deeply boring, and I can only agree. But I mean, you think of a bobcat, that's pretty solid in PvP for its high fire rate at close ranges. It's not one-shotting anyone, but it's a good PvP weapon. Of course, it was the design lead of the game, Virgil Watkins, talking about this, saying it's completely possible. But the way the guns are relative to each other, that's where we have to be very careful. And that's why we deliberately did things like the hullcracker and equalizer changes. So they acknowledge the desire of the player base for more PvP related focused weapons, especially the first of its kind for a special weapon would be cool. But he says there should never be a one-shot situation if you're wearing a shield and have full health. I think that gameplay is deeply boring, and to just be deleted in an instant is not our type of game. So I'm happy about that. He also talks about the concept of a weapon that is noticeably stronger in PvP, saying that if they were to do something that's substantially stronger in that context, it needs to come with the appropriate price tag, running costs, and risks. I'm not in any way against players having that spike in power and feeling cool for a moment, but it cannot be, I've got this thing and I just win fights because of it. Kind of reminds me of the trigger nade. So what do you guys think? Do you have an idea for a special legendary weapon that could be meant for PvP? You think about energy ammo and how it's meant to be particularly strong against arc due to its armor stripping aspect? What could we get instead for PvP? My first thought is something that can knock them over, since that's a mechanic we have with mines and such. But maybe one that doesn't actually do damage. But the idea of losing player control, where a player runs up and just hits you with a thing, while a teammate shoots you, probably not too fun. Maybe they could do something with like shield stripping instead. So you're firing the energy ammo from that gun into a player, and it absolutely eviscerates shields. So a medium shield, a heavy shield, just loses all of its shield really quickly, or like completely instantly. But let's say its health damage is minuscule. You have to swap to a different weapon. Maybe that could be interesting, I don't know. Let me know your thoughts. One thing that people are making their thoughts well known about after the patch of 1.13 is the new map event Bird City, which is basically the timeline being really unfriendly to your average person who works or is at school or, I don't know, sleeping when this event is actually available. They're calling it the most unemployed event ever. Anyone that gets to play it has to be unemployed, because if you play in Europe, it's just at awful times. You get 3 a day and they're up for 1 hour. So if you're in the UK like me, that means it's at midnight until 1 AM. Or at 8 AM to 9 AM, which for most people is when they're getting ready for school or work. And then 4 to 5 PM. So maybe you end whatever you're doing early and make it back in time for that. But your average like 9 to 5 job, nope. Impossible. This is a kind of ongoing issue for the map events in general, and something that's been a point of feedback and complaint for the life cycle of the game. If you want to do hidden bunker or whatever it is, you're trying to get a blueprint or do a certain thing, or say trials when that was a big issue, and people trying to push the high rank trials and the awful experience that was based on these schedules. You had to be like unemployed to be there for all of the event timers to then push the trials as much as possible. And then they did this hilarious thing where they completely removed hidden bunker from the game for a while there, and that was a 40-minute raid, the best way to take on big arc and get high scores for certain targets. When they randomly removed that mid-week, it meant all the people waiting until the end of the week to do their trials to push for the Cantina Legend thing, they got screwed. As a big creator and streamer SK has talked about. She was in the runnings for like, what was it, top 100, top 10? They did that, and that completely screwed her and her team. So there's been issues with the timelines for the map events, and I think it's being a louder point of feedback with the first like new map event in a while with Bird City. The common suggestion is that it isn't on a fixed schedule, and I would also like to see them add the timers in game. Like, yeah, I can see what's coming up next, right? But I can't really see beyond that. Since third-party websites are able to track this, the information's there, so put it in the game so I don't have to go to a third-party website and see when what's happening next is. I definitely think they have to rework the schedule for these events and just how these map events run and when. But yeah, a lot of community-based stuff this week for the news. Once again, please keep in mind that they're looking at exploiters to punish them in new ways. Be very wary of duping glitches and anything that is considered an exploit. Let me know your thoughts on all of it though, and until next time, I've been Hollow, you've been you, thanks for watching.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.